stepped off the transport ship and felt his stomach drop. The gravity on Prime was heavier than Earth's, and the humid air stuck to his skin like wet cloth. Around him, massive figures moved through the landing bay. They were even bigger than the videos had shown. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, their scaled skin gleaming under the harsh lights. Each one had 4 powerful arms and eyes that looked at him like a predator watching prey. He was 19 years old, barely out of engineering school, and he had never felt smaller in his life. "You are the Terran," a voice boomed above him, looked up at a warrior whose scales were dark red. The warrior's mouth pulled back in what might have been a smile, showing rows of sharp teeth. "I expected something more." Laughter erupted around them. Others joined in, their deep voices echoing off the metal walls. Felt his face burn, but he kept his expression calm. He had been warned that the valued strength above all else. Showing weakness now would make everything worse. "I am," he said, keeping his voice steady. "I'm here for the exchange program." "Exchange program," the red-scaled repeated as if the words were funny. "I am Vex. I hunt beasts that would tear you in half, Softskin. What exactly will you exchange? Your fear?" More laughter. Picked up his equipment bags and followed the markers toward the visitor quarters. Behind him, he heard Vex say something in the language. The laughter that followed told him it was not a compliment. The next few days were worse. Every morning, all visitors had to join the in-combat training. It was mandatory, they said, part of understanding their culture. Struggled with weapons made for creatures twice his size. The training blades were so heavy he could barely lift them. When he tried, the warriors circled around him, clicking their teeth in amusement. "Watch the weak blood try to be a warrior," one of them called out. During sparring, was knocked down again and again. His body ached from bruises. They pulled their strikes, he knew. If they hit him with full force, they would kill him. But even their gentle blows sent him sprawling across the training mat. Even the officer assigned to help human delegates seemed disappointed in him. She was smaller than most, only 7 feet tall, with silver scales. "Your species joined the Galactic Council," she said one evening, examining a report on her data tablet. "Yet you cannot even hold a blade properly. How did humans survive long enough to reach the stars?" Wanted to explain that humans survived through intelligence, through cooperation, through building tools and solving problems, but had already walked away. There was only one who did not mock him. The Relentless was a legend among his people. The story said he had hunted void serpents in deep space, using nothing but a blade and his wits. His scales were marked with scars from 100 battles. Others moved aside when he walked past, showing respect without words. Often watched the training sessions from the observation deck. While others laughed at struggles, simply watched with unreadable eyes. Once, their eyes met across the training hall. Expected mockery, but just nodded slightly and turned away. The real trouble started during the feast on 7th day on Prime. The Great Hall was filled with warriors, celebrating successful hunts. They ate roasted meat and drank strong beverages that smelled like burning metal, sat at the edge of the hall picking at his food. The food was too spicy for him, too strong. Everything on this world was too strong for him. Vex stood up, raising his drinking horn. "A toast," he shouted. The hall fell quiet. "To the mighty hunters of the Dominion." "To the hunters," the crowd roared back. Vex's eyes found across the room. A cruel smile spread across his face. "And to our honored guest from Earth, the soft skin who trembles at the sight of a training blade." Scattered laughter rippled through the hall, felt hundreds of eyes turned toward him. "Perhaps the Terran would like to prove his worth," Vex continued. "The blood hunt begins in 3 days. Young warriors enter the dead zones to hunt dangerous beasts. It is how we prove ourselves worthy of the hunter's mark." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Will the Terran join us, or will he admit that his kind is too weak for such things?" The hall went completely silent, knew what was happening. If he refused, he would bring shame not just to himself but to all of Earth. that would report back to the Galactic Council that humans were cowards, but if he accepted, he would likely die in those jungles. The dead zones were called dead for a reason. Was watching him from across the room, her expression unreadable. Other warriors leaned forward, waiting for his answer. Noticed that had entered the hall and stood near the doorway, his arms crossed over his massive chest. Stood up, his legs felt weak, but he forced himself to walk toward the center of the hall. The crowd parted for him. When he reached Vex, he had to look up to meet the warrior's eyes. "I accept," said clearly. Vex's smile widened. "Excellent. I look forward to seeing what a human can do when faced with real danger." His tone made it clear he expected to fail or die trying. The hall erupted in excited chatter. Warriors began placing bets on how long the Terran would survive. Some said 1 day. Others were more generous and said 2. As walked back to his seat, he passed by. The legendary hunter was still standing by the door, watching everything. For just a moment, something changed in his expression. It was not pity and not quite respect. It was more like recognition, as if he saw something in that others missed. That night, alone in his quarters, pulled out his and began reviewing everything he could find about the dead zones. He was not a warrior. He was an engineer. But engineers solved problems, and right now, survival was a problem that needed solving. He had 3 days to figure out how a weak human could survive in a place designed to test the strongest warriors in the galaxy. Outside his window, the twin moons of Prime cast long shadows across the jungle. Somewhere out there in the darkness, the dead zones waited. 3 days passed too quickly. While the warriors sharpened their blades and boasted about past kills, spent every waking hour in his quarters studying data. The dead zones covered nearly a quarter of Prime's largest continent. They called it dead because most creatures avoided the area. Those that lived there were the most dangerous predators on the planet. Downloaded maps, weather patterns, geological surveys. He studied the beasts that roamed the dead zones. Thornbacks with armor thick enough to stop plasma fire, that could smell blood from miles away, that hunted in packs and never made a sound until they struck. He could not fight these creatures, that was clear, but maybe he did not have to. On the second day, visited the equipment storage bay. The technician on duty looked surprised to see him. "The hunt begins tomorrow, Softskin. Should you not be preparing yourself mentally for death?" "I need some items," said, showing his list. The technician read through it and laughed. "Motion sensors, pressure plates, chemical markers, these are mining tools, not weapons." "I know what they are," said patiently. The technician shrugged and gathered the items. When also requested rope, pulleys, and a basic tool kit, the shook his head. "You go to face the greatest predators on our world and you bring toys. The others will sing songs of your foolishness after you die." That evening, modified his equipment in his quarters. He took apart the motion sensors and made them smaller, easier to hide. He tested the chemical markers to make sure they would work in the humid jungle air. He built a simple compound pulley system that would let him lift weights far heavier than he could manage alone. When came to check on him, she found him surrounded by wires and metal pieces. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Preparing," said, not looking up from his work. "This is not preparation, this is. I do not even know what this is." She picked up one of his motion sensors. "The hunt is about proving your strength, your courage. These devices prove nothing." Finally looked up at her. "They prove I want to survive." Set the sensor down carefully. For a moment she almost looked sad. The respect warriors who face death with honor. There is no honor in hiding behind machines. "Maybe," said, "but there is survival." The morning of the hunt arrived with heavy rain. 10 participants gathered at the edge of the dead zones. 9 of them were young warriors, each one eager to prove themselves. The 10th was, wearing a simple expedition suit and carrying a backpack full of equipment that made the warriors laugh. "Look, the soft skin brought his entire workshop," Vex called out. The other clicked their teeth in amusement. One of the younger warriors stepped forward. Her name was Sara, and her scales were bright green, marking her as barely an adult. "First blood hunt?" asked. "Yes," Sora said. She looked at its equipment with curiosity rather than mockery. "What are those devices?" "Tools," said simply. Before Sara could ask more, an elder named arrived to explain the rules. The rules were simple. Enter the dead zones, hunt dangerous beasts, return alive with proof of your kill. The hunt would last 3 days. Participants could enter from any direction and hunt anywhere within the boundary markers. "You each carry a communicator," said, holding up a small device. "It broadcasts your location to the observation station. If you wish to quit, press the emergency button. A shuttle will retrieve you, but know that quitting marks you as unworthy forever." His eyes settled on for a moment longer than necessary. The message was clear. No one expected the human to last the full 3 days. From the observation station above, the Relentless watched through the monitors. His duty during the hunt was to observe, to ensure the young warriors faced real danger but were not killed by unfair circumstances. He could not interfere unless someone pressed their emergency button. The hunt began. The warriors spread out in different directions, each one confident in their abilities. Vex led a group of 3 others toward the eastern sector, where thornbacks were known to nest. They moved through the jungle like they owned it, making no effort to hide their presence. Sora headed north alone. She wanted to prove herself without help. Her hand rested on her blade as she moved through the dense vegetation. Went west toward an area they avoided. According to his maps, there were caves there and unusual rock formations. He moved slowly, using a handheld scanner to check for dangerous creatures nearby. Every few hundred meters, he stopped to place a motion sensor, hiding each one carefully in the undergrowth. The jungle was dense and dark despite the morning light. Strange plants with thick leaves blocked out the sky. The air was so humid that his clothes stuck to his skin within minutes. He heard sounds all around him, rustling in the bushes, calls from creatures he could not identify. Once, something large moved through the trees above him, but when he looked up it was already gone. By midday, Vex's voice crackled over the communication channel that all hunters shared. "First blood," he announced proudly. "My team has brought down a thornback, a magnificent beast. Let us see if the others can match this achievement." The other young warriors responded with determination, each one vowing to make their own kill. Said nothing. He was too busy studying the readings on his scanner. Something was wrong. The geological data showed unusual activity in the western sector, minor tremors that should not be there. He pulled up older surveys and compared them. The pattern was consistent. Something was moving underground, something big. He switched his scanner to deep penetration mode and moved toward an area where the readings were strongest. The tremors were getting more frequent. According to the database, the dead zones were called dead because large predators had killed most of the prey animals decades ago. But what if that was wrong? What if something else made the area dangerous? As evening approached, set up his camp in a small clearing. The other hunters would probably sleep in trees or stay awake all night, proving their endurance. Had no such pride. He needed rest. He set up a perimeter of motion sensors around his camp, connected to an alarm on his wrist. Then he spread chemical markers that would confuse the sense of smell for most predators. Finally, he climbed into his sleeping bag and closed his eyes. Around him, the jungle grew darker. Strange sounds filled the air. But his sensors were active, his alarms were set. If anything came close, he would know. High above in the observation station, studied the monitors showing each hunter's location. Most of them were on the move, hunting actively. But one signal had stopped in the western sector. The human signal. Zoomed in the satellite view and saw the small camp, saw the careful arrangement of devices around the perimeter. "Smart," said quietly to himself. "He fights the jungle itself, not just the beasts within it." As night fell over the dead zones, the real dangers began to emerge from their hiding places. And deep underground, something ancient stirred, disturbed by the vibrations of hunters walking above its domain. Woke to his alarm buzzing softly on his wrist. Something had triggered one of his motion sensors. He checked his scanner in the darkness. A mid-sized creature, probably circling his camp about 50 meters out. The chemical markers were working. The beast could smell something was there but could not pinpoint exactly where. After 10 minutes of searching, it moved on. Did not go back to sleep. He packed up his camp in the pre-dawn darkness and continued west. His scanner showed the underground tremors were stronger now, much stronger. He pulled up the database and searched for any creature that matched the readings. There, deep in the historical files, he found it. Massive burrowing predators that lived deep underground, that had hunted them nearly to extinction 200 years ago. The last confirmed sighting was 50 years ago. The database listed them as extinct. But's readings said otherwise. Something big was down there, and it was moving. He checked the location data for the other hunters. Vex's group was heading straight toward the area where the underground activity was strongest. He opened the communication channel. I have detected unusual seismic activity in sectors 7 and 8. Large underground movement. I recommend avoiding those areas. Static, then Vex's mocking laugh came through. The soft skin sees shadows and trembles. Perhaps you should press your emergency button now, Terran, and save yourself further embarrassment. I am serious, insisted. The readings show something massive moving beneath the surface. We are hunters, not cowards who fear the ground beneath our feet, another voice responded. Your sensors are probably malfunctioning. Stick to hiding in your camp, weak blood. The channel went silent, stood in the jungle, frustration boiling in his chest. They were not going to listen. Why would they? He was the outsider, the one they mocked and dismissed. His warnings meant nothing to them. He checked his map again. If the underground creature continued on its current path, it would surface right in the middle of Sector 8. That was exactly where Vex's group was heading. He had maybe 6 hours before they reached the danger zone. Started moving faster, pushing through the dense jungle. He had to get there first, had to find physical proof that would make them listen. His legs burned from the effort. The heavy gravity made every step harder, but he kept moving. Around midday, he heard something ahead, the sound of metal on metal. Someone was there. He approached carefully and found Sora sitting against a tree, her face twisted in pain. Her left leg was caught in the jaws of what looked like a steel trap. Blood stained her bright green scales. Jaw trap, she said through gritted teeth when she saw him. They clamp down on prey and lock shut, cannot be opened by force. Knelt beside her. How long have you been here? Since dawn, my communicator was damaged in the fall. She looked at him with angry eyes. So you found me. Good. Call for extraction. Let them rescue me and laugh at my failure. Can I look at it first? Asked. Sora laughed bitterly. What will you do, soft skin? You cannot even lift a training blade. This trap is designed to hold creatures twice my size. Ignored her and examined the trap carefully. It was biological, not mechanical. This jaw had ossified after death, creating a natural vice. But like any biological structure, it had weak points. He pulled out his tool kit and selected a small plasma cutter. What are you doing? Sora demanded. Helping you. Carefully applied the cutter to specific points on the jaw structure. The plasma melted through the weaker sections. After 5 minutes of careful work, the jaw loosened enough for Sora to pull her leg free. She stared at her leg, then at confusion clear on her face. Why? You could have called for extraction. They would have taken me out of the hunt. One less competitor. Was already applying medical gel to her wound. You needed help. But I laughed when they mocked you, Sora said quietly. I stood there and did nothing while they called you weak blood and soft skin. Finished bandaging her leg and sat back. Yeah, you did. That was not great. He looked at her directly. But you are hurt now, and I am here so I help. That is what humans do. Sora opened her mouth to respond, but the ground suddenly shook beneath them. Not a small tremor, a violent lurch that knocked them both sideways. Trees swayed. Rocks tumbled down a nearby slope. The shaking lasted for 10 seconds, then stopped. Checked his scanner immediately. No, 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 no. What is it? Sora asked, trying to stand. The underground movement, it just changed direction. He pulled up the map and showed her. It is heading straight for Vex's position. Fast. How fast? They have maybe 30 minutes. Sora tried to walk, but her injured leg gave out. She grabbed a tree for support. We have to warn them. I tried. They will not listen to me. Then we go there. My word carries more weight than yours, soft skin. No offense. None taken, helped her stand. Can you walk? I can try. They moved through the jungle as fast as Sora's injury allowed. Checked his scanner constantly. The underground signature was moving faster now, as if it had locked onto prey. Behind them, the ground shook again, harder this time. What exactly is it? Sora asked as they pushed through thick vegetation. Big burrowing predator. Your people thought they were extinct. How big? Showed her the database entry. Sora's eyes widened. That is the size of a small ship. Yeah. The ground shook again. This time they heard something else. A deep rumbling sound from beneath the earth, like thunder trapped underground. Whatever was down there was getting close to the surface. They reached a ridge overlooking Sector 8. Below, could see Vex's group. The 4 warriors were celebrating another kill, standing over the body of a large predator. They had no idea what was about to happen. Grabbed his communicator. Vex, get out of there now, move to higher ground. Vex's voice came back, annoyed. Terran, I have had enough of your. The ground exploded. A massive shape burst from the earth like a missile launching in reverse. Rocks and dirt flew everywhere. The rose into the air, its body seeming to go on forever. Crystalline teeth lined a mouth large enough to swallow a transport ship. Its scales were brown and black, covered in the dirt of deep places. The warriors scattered. 2 of them were thrown through the air by the force of the eruption. The tail whipped around, demolishing a rock formation where 1 warrior had taken cover. From the observation station, alarms blared. Was on his feet instantly, watching the monitors in shock. What is that thing? The technician beside him pulled up old database files with shaking hands. But they are extinct. They have been extinct for 50 years. Tell that to the creature trying to eat our hunters, snapped. He reached for the emergency extraction controls, but stopped. The young warriors were already too scattered. A shuttle landing in the middle of that chaos would just give the another target. Below watched as Vex tried to rally his group, but their weapons did nothing. Energy blasts splashed off the creature's thick hide like water off stone. Blades could not penetrate its scales. 1 warrior got too close and was batted away by a massive claw. He did not get up. We have to do something, Sora said beside him. Was already thinking. His engineer's mind was racing through possibilities. There was huge, yes. Nearly invincible, yes. But every creature had weaknesses. Every problem had a solution. He looked at Sora. Can you contact the observation station? My communicator is damaged, remember. Pulled out his own and handed it to her. Tell them I need geological survey data for this entire area. Rock density, stability, everything. And tell them to send it fast. As Sora made the call, started running down the ridge toward the chaos below. Behind him, Sora shouted after him. Where are you going, soft skin? Did not look back. He was already forming a plan. A crazy, probably impossible plan, but it was the only chance they had. Ran toward the while every instinct screamed at him to run away. The creature was even more terrifying up close. Each of its movements sent shockwaves through the ground. Its roar was so loud it made his ears ring, but forced himself to focus on the problem, not the fear. He spotted Vex pinned under a collapsed rock formation. The warrior's arm was bent at an unnatural angle. Two other warriors were trying to lift the rocks, but they were too heavy even for their massive strength. "Get back!" shouted as he reached them. He dropped his backpack and pulled out his compound pulley system. The warriors stared at him like he had lost his mind. "What are you?" one of them started. "No time, help me set this up." Wrap the cables around stable points in the rock. The pulley system would multiply their lifting force. "Now pull when I say." The swung its massive head toward them, sensing new prey. Could see inside its mouth, rows and rows of crystalline teeth. "Pull!" shouted. The warriors pulled on the cables. The mechanical advantage of the pulleys did the rest. The rocks shifted, then lifted. Vex scrambled out from under them just as this head crashed down where he had been seconds before. "Run!" grabbed Vex and helped him toward cover. The other warriors followed. Behind them, they demolished the entire rock formation, searching for them. They reached a cluster of large boulders and collapsed behind it. Vex stared at with wide eyes. "You came back. You ran toward it." "Yeah, well, seemed like you needed help." Checked his scanner. The geological data from the observation station was coming through. He studied it quickly, his mind working through calculations. "Terran," one of the other warriors said, breathing hard. "Our weapons do nothing. How do we fight this thing?" "We do not fight it," said, still studying the data. "We cannot, but maybe we can stop it." From the observation station, watched everything. The human's helmet camera was still active, broadcasting everything he saw, leaned closer to the monitors. What was the young Terran planning? Pointed at the cliff face to the east. "That rock wall is unstable. See the stress fractures. The geological survey shows weak points throughout the structure. If we can collapse it, we can bury the—" "Bury it?" Vex laughed, then winced from pain. "That creature is the size of a ship. A cliff collapse would just annoy it." "Not if we do it right." Pulled out his mining charges. He had 6 of them, small but powerful. "We do not need to kill it. We just need to trap it long enough for extraction shuttles to arrive." Another warrior spoke up. "Even if your plan works, how do we get it under that cliff? The creature is not stupid." Looked at it was tearing through the jungle, searching for them. Its sensory organs lined its flanks, glowing faintly. "Those organs detect vibration and heat. It is hunting us based on our energy signatures. So we lead it where we want it to go." Started distributing the mining charges to the warriors. "I need you to place these at the weak points I mark on your maps. Can you move quietly?" The warriors looked at each other. Move quietly? They were hunters. Stealth was part of their training. They nodded. "Good. Once the charges are set, we make noise. We make the creature chase us toward the cliff. When it is in position, we blow the charges." Vex struggled to his feet, cradling his broken arm. "That plan is insane." "You have a better idea." Vex was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed, a short, pained sound. "I would rather die following an insane plan than doing nothing. Tell us where to place these charges." The next 10 minutes were the longest of his life. He watched on his scanner as the warriors moved into position, placing charges at the structural weak points he had identified. There was still searching, still destroying everything in its path. Twice it came close to discovering one of the warriors, but they managed to stay hidden. Sora arrived, limping down from the ridge. She had somehow fashioned a crutch from a tree branch. "What can I do?" "Stay back," said. "You are injured." "So is Vex, but he is helping." She grabbed one of the remaining charges. "Where does this go?" Showed her on the map. She nodded and moved toward the cliff, favoring her good leg. Wanted to stop her, but knew it would be useless. They were stubborn that way. Finally, all charges were in place. The warriors regrouped behind position. Now came the dangerous part. We need to get its attention, said. Make it chase us toward the cliff, but not too fast. We need time to reach the safe zone. Leave that to me, Vex said. He stood up fully, raised his good arm, and roared a challenge in the language. The sound echoed across the jungle. This head snapped toward them. Its sensory organs blazed bright. It had found them. Run, shouted. They ran. Behind them, the crash through the jungle like an avalanche. Trees splintered. The ground shook with each step. Legs burned. The heavy gravity made running feel like moving through thick water, but fear is a powerful motivator. Checked his scanner as they ran. The creature was following. Good. He adjusted their path slightly, leading it toward the cliff. That was fast, terrifyingly fast for something so large. It was gaining on them. Faster, Sora shouted, though she was struggling on her injured leg. A warrior named grabbed her and lifted her onto his shoulders without breaking stride. Strength had its advantages. The cliff face loomed ahead. Checked the positions, almost there. That was right behind them now. He could feel the heat of its breath just a little further. Now, dove to the side. The warriors scattered. The moving too fast to stop burst into the killing zone right beneath the cliff. Hit the detonator. The charges exploded in sequence, each one placed perfectly to maximize the structural damage. The cliff face shuddered. For a moment, nothing happened. His heart sank. Had he miscalculated? Then the cliff began to fall. Thousands of tons of rock collapsed onto the creature roared, a sound of rage and surprise. It tried to burrow back underground, but more rock fell, pinning it in place. Dust filled the air, making it impossible to see. And the others lay on the ground, covering their heads as debris rained down around them. The rumbling seemed to go on forever. Finally, silence. Lifted his head. Through the settling dust, he could see a massive pile of rubble that was buried under it. Not dead, probably, but trapped. He could see parts of it still moving beneath the rocks. Did we just do that? One of the warriors asked in disbelief. Sora started laughing, then joined in. Soon all the warriors were laughing, the sound filled with relief and amazement. Vex limped over too. The warrior stared at him for a long moment. Then he did something never expected. He knelt down, placing his good hand on the ground in a gesture of respect. I was wrong about you, Terran, Vex said quietly. Completely wrong. The extraction shuttles arrived within the hour. Medical teams rushed to help the wounded. 3 warriors had died in the initial attack, their bodies recovered from the rubble. The survivors were battered and exhausted, but alive. All because of a plan created by the one they had mocked as weak. The footage from their helmet cameras had broadcast everything back to the settlement. By the time the shuttles landed back at the main compound, a crowd had gathered. Hundreds of stood in the landing bay, silent and watchful. Stepped off the shuttle last. His expedition suit was torn and covered in dust. His hands were scraped and bleeding. He looked terrible, but he was alive, and so were the warriors he had helped save. The crowd parted as Vex walked forward. His broken arm was in a medical brace now, but he moved with purpose. In front of everyone, the proud warrior who had spent days mocking the human did something that shocked the entire assembly. He removed his hunter's blade from his belt and knelt before. I shamed you with words born of ignorance, Vex said, his voice carrying across the silent bay. I called you weak, I called you soft-skin, I said your kind had no place among warriors. He placed the blade on the ground between them. But you fought with the fury of a warrior and the wisdom of an elder. You ran toward death to save those who had mocked you. You used your mind as a weapon when we relied only on claws. I was wrong. I ask your forgiveness. Stood frozen. He had not expected this. Around them, other warriors who had joined in the mockery came forward one by one. Each placed a weapon on the ground. Each spoke words of apology. Even stepped forward, her silver scales catching the light. I judged you by our standards, she said quietly. I never considered that your standards might be equally valid. My people have much to learn about humans." Then the crowd stirred. Someone was approaching from the back. The moved aside immediately, showing deep respect. The relentless walked through the path they created. The legendary hunter's footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. He stopped in front of. For a long moment, the two simply looked at each other. Felt small under that gaze, but he did not look away. "I have hunted across 100 worlds," said, his voice deep and clear. "I have faced the void's terrors and emerged blooded but alive. I have been called the Dominion's finest hunter." He paused, letting the words settle. "But today I witnessed something I have never seen." The crowd leaned forward, hanging on every word. "Not courage, many have courage, not strength. Strength comes in many forms." Eyes never left's face. "I witnessed a warrior who ran toward death to save those who mocked him, who used his mind as a weapon when others relied only on claws, who valued life over pride." Reached up and removed something from around his neck. It was a crystalline fang, polished smooth by time. Every in the bay recognized it. The fang of a void serpent, the mark of a legendary hunter. Only a handful of in all of history had earned the right to wear such a thing. Placed it around his neck. The weight of it was surprising, both physically and symbolically. "They have a word," continued, "for one who hunts beside us, who bleeds with us, who we would trust with our lives." He placed one of his 4 hands on shoulder. "Brother." The word hung in the air like thunder. Then someone in the crowd clicked their teeth in approval. Another joined in. Within seconds, the entire bay echoed with the sign of respect, the sound like 1,000 stones clicking together. Smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "Welcome to the Hunter's Lodge of Earth. You are the first of your kind to receive this honor. You will not be the last." That evening the settlement held a ceremonial feast. It was different from the one before. This time, sat at the high table with and the elder hunters. Warriors approached throughout the night, asking questions about his tactics, about human strategies, about how he thought so differently from them. Sora came by with a gift. It was a blade, smaller than normal weapons, sized for a human hand. "I had it made from this teeth," she said. "Took the crafters only a few hours. They were eager to work with such rare material." Accepted it with both hands. The blade was beautiful, sharp as any metal and gleaming like crystal. "Thank you." "No, thank you." Sora sat down next to him. "You saved my life in that jungle, freed me from that trap. You could have left me there." "I could not do that." "I know, that is what makes you different," she smiled. "When I heal, I want you to teach me about tactical engineering. The way you trapped that creature, the way you turned the environment into a weapon. We have much to learn from your people." As the feast continued, the elder approached. The old looked thoughtful. "I spent years training young warriors, teaching them to be strong, to be fierce, to rely on their claws and blades." He shook his head slowly. "But you made me realize something. The first hunters of any species, they succeeded not because they were strongest. They succeeded because they adapted. They used tools, they worked together. Somehow we forgot that." Later, when the noise died down and many had left to rest, found himself alone on an observation deck. He looked up at the stars, thinking of Earth. Somewhere out there, other young humans were on other worlds, facing their own challenges. He hoped they were doing okay. Footsteps behind him joined him at the railing. "Do you know why I said nothing when they mocked you?" the old hunter asked. Shook his head. "Because I recognized something in you, something my people had forgotten." Gestured to the settlement below, where and the few other species present were mingling. "We pride ourselves on being warriors, but we forgot what made our ancestors successful. Not strength alone. Intelligence, adaptability, the ability to look at a problem and find a new solution." "I just did what I had to do." "Exactly. You did what was necessary, not what was expected." Was quiet for a moment. "I have watched many species join the Galactic Council. Some bring strength, some bring resources, some bring technology. But humans, your people bring something more valuable. You bring perspective. You refuse to accept that something cannot be done just because it has never been done before. That sounds like it would annoy a lot of species. Laughed a deep rumbling sound. Oh, it will. Believe me, it will. But the galaxy needs that. We have been doing things the same way for so long, we forgot there might be better ways. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the twin moons rise over Prime. What will you do now? Asked. The exchange program continues for another month. I will stay, learn what I can. Maybe teach a little too if anyone wants to learn. They will want to learn. After today, you have become something of a legend yourself, smiled. The soft skin who trapped in with mining tools and clever thinking. The story will spread across the Dominion. Other species will hear it too. Touched the void serpent fang around his neck. It still felt strange to wear it. I am not a warrior like you. No, you are not, agreed. You are something different, something we need more of in this galaxy. You are a survivor who thinks first and fights only when necessary. You are an engineer who sees solutions where warriors see only obstacles. You are a human. The old hunter placed a hand on shoulder again. And now, you are also my brother. In the distance, voices rose in song. They were singing of the hunt, of the young warriors who faced and for the first time in their long history, their songs included a human name. Smiled. He had come to Prime expecting to endure mockery and survive until he could go home. Instead, he had found something unexpected: respect, understanding, and maybe, just maybe, he had helped bridge the gap between two very different species. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but it was also full of possibilities, and humans, realized, were very good at finding new possibilities. He looked up at the stars again. Somewhere out there, humanity was making its place in the universe, not as the strongest species, not as the most advanced, but as the ones who refused to give up, who adapted to anything, who found solutions where others saw only problems. And that thought was something worth being proud of. Below, the feast continued. Voices called his name, inviting him back. He took one last look at the stars, then headed back inside. He had stories to tell and people eager to hear them. He had become a brother to but he was still very much human. And that was exactly what the galaxy needed.